How we doing? Everybody make it in okay? Fire away.
Well, obviously you franchised Ziggy yesterday. Is that a situation where you'd like to get a long-term deal done with him before July 16? What was the plan?
Yeah, we talked to Ziggy yesterday morning before we came down here. Coach and I had a good conversation with Ziggy about what the future entails, and all those conversations between me and the players are going to be private. We're not going to get into talking about it with you guys, but we did talk to him, told him what our plan was, and he understands where we're coming from. We understand where he's coming from, and we're looking forward to having him on the team.
How big are how much might that be to
Yeah, Ziggy's worked. I mean, he's had some injuries, no question, but when you look over his career, he hasn't missed all that many games. One thing about Ziggy, he's extremely tough. When he can practice, he can play. A great deal of respect for how his work, all the behind the scenes things that you guys don't see in terms of him trying to get his body right. Whether it was his ankles in 2016 to this year with the knee and a couple other things that popped up. He works extremely hard behind the scenes to get ready for Sundays, and I have a great deal of respect for that. No, I mean, when we talk about contracts and long-term deals for any player, we factor in everything. We factor in personality, intelligence, durability. I mean, you name it, there's about 20 factors, so that goes into everybody.
Now that you got obviously it's a little bit far out, but is that a deal you want to
like I said before, any contract talks with the individual players, we're not talking about it in the media. If we have those conversations with him, we'll do it with him personally, and that's how we're going to leave it.
How good have the last 3 weeks been with Matt? Just getting him in, having a chance for him to watch the film, see the roster, see maybe his input on that. How has this last 2 weeks?
It's been busy. It's been fun. A lot of long hours watching tape, talking through different things. We had a lot of time, talking about staff. The staff is kind of coming together pretty good. I feel like we're getting close there. And Matt and I have evaluated the roster, kind of dove into free agency the last, I'd say the last week or so, kind of going through guys that might fit what we're trying to do, and it's been fun. It's been like the good old days. Yeah, that's probably a better question for Matt. He's coming up next, so you can hit him with that.
Do you expect Haloti to play next year?
Halotti's a free agent, so we have conversations with all of our upcoming free agents. We haven't talked to him yet, so I don't really have a sense. Kenny had a solid rookie year, kind of missed some time in the middle of the season with the hamstring, kind of worked back. We have a tremendous amount of I think Kenny has a tremendous amount of upside. I think he needs to really have a great offseason this year to get his body to where it needs to be. He has great potential, and we're looking forward to working with him. Yeah, well, I mean, what is a feature back? I mean, you tell me what a feature back is. I think he has 3-down value. Listen, we're gonna have 4 to 5 running backs on the roster every year. So there's about, I'd say, 4 or 5 lead or elite running backs in the league right now. You can probably name them on one hand. So does Amir fit in that? He didn't last year, okay? But listen, he's a guy that we like. He's a smart guy. He's a versatile guy. He can catch it out of the backfield. He can run the ball. So, he has to have a good offseason, come back and improve himself to a new coaching staff. Yeah.
But then adding Matt Patricia is going to have to how does the offense align with your staff change given this impact?
Yeah, I mean,
speaking of running backs, it's surpassing.
It is, sure. But we want to be balanced, too. And that's something we weren't last year. That's something we're striving for, to kind of create that run-pass balance. You can't just go drop back with Matthew Stafford and try to throw it 40 times a game. That's not good for anybody. That's not good for the receivers. That's not good for the quarterback. That's not good for the offensive line. So we're going to try to develop a little bit more balance offensively, and that's something that I think Jim Bob can do, along with the other new staff members on offense that we've added. So I think it's going to be a good mix.
Are you able to address this during us talk about your needs? Are you impressed with us what the
Yeah, I'm not going to get into specifics of what we need. You guys probably have a pretty good sense of that as you guys study our team. Matt and I and the coaching staff are still kind of going through some of that right now because we're a little bit, a tiny bit behind just with the timing of the hiring of Matt. But we have a pretty good sense of where we're going. I just don't want to get into too many specifics.
What do you think of this year's running back class?
It's a deep class. Those guys. Guys weighed in this morning. I just came from there, so it's a good-looking crew. It's guys that have different skill sets, guys that can carry the ball, the guys that can catch. One underrated aspect of this running back class, as I go through it, is pass protection. It's something that a lot of these guys are skilled at with the passing games in college, which is really the key to most offenses. They have more experience in pass protection, so it's a little bit easier to get the evaluation done. You're not searching for those snaps quite as much as you might have been 5 or 7 years ago. So to kind of add that into the evaluation process, it's a little easier when you put on 3 or 4 games. You can tell if a guy can pass protect, which is crucial in this league. Yeah, we'll see how free agency goes. I think I said the same thing last year, and Matt and I were talking about it the other day. You look at the free agency list right now, and there's a bunch of guys that you like, right? But a lot of these guys are going to re-sign with their own teams before they even get to the open market. So you got to be able to adjust. You got to be able to take the players that you have on your team and try to fit them into spots where Matt and the defensive coaches want to use them, and then you kind of just fill in as you go through the free agency and the draft. Listen, we're trying to add good players. So, you tell me in 2 weeks who's actually going to be available, and I'll tell you if I'm going to go try to sign them. It's going to be a hard thing this year. When you look at the teams that have needs across, you name a position, they're going to try to re-sign their own guys for the majority. So you got to really be able to do a good job at the second and third level of free agency to hit on guys that can maybe kind of contribute into your, offensive and defensive schemes. Chris? Yeah, I think they're probably a pretty good chance they are internal. We drafted those guys for a reason last year, and when we evaluated them in the postseason process, we like what they did in their roles. Jamal didn't really get out defensively too much because we had a lot of depth at nickel. I think Jamal can probably handle some of those roles, but he has to have a really good offseason. He has to come in and learn a new defense, so that's going to be a transition for him. And then Tease had a solid rookie year. We started him off slow on purpose to kind of get his feet wet a little bit before we threw him out there. And the more he played down the stretch, I think the better he played. So.
I'm sure you guys don't have a full ball now.
Yeah, they have to, a college fullback into the NFL, they have to be able to play on special teams, and they have to be really good at one thing, either run blocking, pass protection, or catching the ball out of the backfield. So there's not that many of them right now. So it's when you look at the list of the guys that are here, there's only a handful of fullbacks. So a lot of these guys that end up coming into the league as fullbacks, they might have played tight end in college, it might have been a big running back. So you got to really open your lens a little bit and kind of be, wide open about the guys you're evaluating that can play that spot if you're going to use one.
What's your postseason evaluation of Jared?
Yeah, Jared had a good rookie year. We threw him right into the mix from the start. Middle linebacker, playing every snap for the first however many weeks, making the calls on defense. So, and then we kind of slowed it back there mid-season a little bit to kind of let him just go play. And then towards the end of the season, he really stepped it up and played great down the stretch. So, JD is a player that obviously we liked well enough to take in the first round and to start from day one. So we have a great deal of faith in his future. Can you clarify your question? Yeah, going into last year, we had high hopes for the entire offense, and some things in the offense did really well, and some things didn't. Looking back at it, did we not add someone? I don't know. This year is something that I've talked about since the end of the season that I want to try to improve, and I think the coaches and my staff are going out trying to improve that.
What are some of the things you guys consider
You know, if they don't fit the height, weight, speed prototypes, I think you got to have a really unique skill set to do one thing extremely well. So if they're going to be an undersized, you know, you name the position, they're going to have explosive speed, or they can be a really good special teams player. So, you know, height, weight, speed is important, but I think the most important thing is how good of a football player they are and just watching the tape. Yeah, he's here. Yeah.
Do you see Graham playing center, or leaving that kind of?
We're going to leave that open. We'll see how the roster. The great thing about Graham is he can play both spots, and I think he proved that the last 2 seasons. So you know, we'll see when we get back in April what other guys we have in the team and kind of how Graham fits into the mix. Yeah, Jalen's really athletic. He's really instinctive. He's a tiny bit undersized, and I think you know, coming out of college, he had a shoulder injury, so he wasn't really able to lift really his last 6 months of college going into the draft. So I think this offseason is going to be really important for him, kind of developing his body. He knows that. We've talked about that, and he's a really athletic guy that can play in sub defenses. He can play in base defense, so he's a versatile guy.
When you evaluate him for
No.
When you evaluate a player like an Arkansas from LSU, like 2 different guys over the last 2 years in college, that's reconcile when you get the ball, when you
That's the hard thing about college scouting, because you can go back and we start watching guys sometimes as sophomores and freshmen, right? And we got to kind of take the really good things they do on tape and see and ask questions to their staff members, to people that are around the player. Why wasn't this consistent? And you got to really have trusting people on the coaching staff that you can call and really get good information. Hey, he was injured in these 4 or 5 games. He had something going on in his life this season. So you got to really put the puzzle together before you make a selection for a guy like that who, I mean, most college players are going to be perfect. So you really got to take what they do well and kind of zone in on that, and then that's the reason you're drafting them.
Just a second. He had a couple of huge games that year.
Yep.
How confident are you back to kind of understanding too small a sample size?
Yeah, he played well down the stretch. The thing about Ziggy that I think really needs to be kind of put out there, when you really watch the tape, like, the offensive lines slide to him all the time. So you go back and watch this guy, there's 2 guys trying to block him, I'd say more than half the plays. So we talk about production. All right, this production on paper, this stat lines, this sacks, this hurries, all that stuff, that's great, right? But when I watch tape and the coaches watch tape, is he doing his job? Okay, is he occupying 2 blockers in Anthony Zettles making a play, or Kerry Hyder, or Ashawn, or whoever? So I think that's part of the stuff that when you really dive into and watch it, I thought he had a productive year.
Stafford doesn't ever miss games when he's been picked up and he's been run together. One point last year in hand.
Yep.
How much of a concern, if any, is just kind of the way that his body's been in recent years?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say every quarterback in the league kind of has bumps and bruises. It's a highly, physical position that you have 11 guys trying to hit you every play. So, Matt's extremely tough. It takes care of his. I'd say in the last 2 years since I've gotten there has been big into the nutrition and taking care of his body in the off season. So he's a really durable guy, and we obviously hope that continues.
A couple more for Bob. Stafford was a massive deal.
Mm-hmm.
You see these coming up now, it seems like a target. Is that just going to be the nature of the quarterback position, salary-wise, and how do you affect it from a cap standpoint?
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about this when we did the Stafford extension, that it's a lot of money, right? I mean, but he's a starting quarterback. I'd say when you have a good one, you try to lock him up and keep him. And I think any team that has one, they're probably trying to do the same thing right now. And I'm guessing who you're asking about. I think the salary cap's going up every year. So if you don't have a quarterback that can really go out and win you some legitimate games in big situations, then you're always going to be trying to draft one or sign one. So I think that price is what it is, and each team's going to value their quarterbacks, to what they think he should get paid.
Last one for Bob.
Yeah, I think the whole comp pick formula, it's important, but it's not going to drive my decisions. It's one of those things where, Do you talk about it when you get into the second and third week of free agency? It comes up in the conversations, but it's not like, hey, if I don't sign this guy, I'm going to get a comp pick. But you know what? I really want this guy. We need him this year. So it's a conversation piece, but it's not a driver of decisions. So,
All right.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Guys that struggle with stuff like sometimes you got to find out what was asked of you at school. If you never asked to know what was front row, so you got to kind of get me that. And sometimes we'll have some follow-up things we need to do on our own based on what he says he was taught when they circle back and find out what he taught this or that's true he was taught. So it does help us process the system. You don't necessarily have every answer when they walk out in 15 minutes, but you have a short time. But you do have a lot.
I took off. I was out. How we doing? Good, good. Good to see everybody. Great. Pretty sturdy.
What do you expect your pace to be?
I think, again, when you start talking about scheme, things like that we have to do each week to try to defend someone defensively, in particular. Offense, it's the same thing. We're going to do whatever we need to do that week to win. So as we go through and we analyze the opponent, take a look at what they do from an offensive or defensive perspective, and however we think we can do a good job to be productive, that's what we're going to do. I heard the question earlier, so I'm already just going to address it. Whoever asked the 3-4-4-3 question, I always laugh at that every single time because it's all, relative, right? It's all the same. I think if you were to say, hey, we're 3-4, we're 4-3, try to take a look at it and figure out what it is. The interesting part about all that is if you guys study film and watch the trends of football, 90% of it isn't even regular defense anymore. It's all sub. So try to figure out what it is from there. So it's a little bit different than just kind of a standard answer to a 4-3 or 3-4.
Matt, you guys put the tag on Ziggy yesterday. I'm just curious, after watching film on him the last 3 weeks, where do you see him kind of winning?
Sure. Ziggy's he's an outstanding player. Obviously had a chance to meet with him, so that was great. And we're going to try to do everything we can to put him in great positions to be productive and help us win.
What have you found to be the most enjoyable part and the most difficult part of the game?
It's a good question because it's kind of a whirlwind right now. So, it's all, been unbelievable from the standpoint of just, everything that you're involved in and kind of trying to make decisions on, which is great. Big focus is trying to get through the process, just setting timelines for, okay, hey, we're working on this week. Next week we got to move on to that, and really putting a schedule together for the, short-term and long-term, looking at big picture where we want to be, say, in a month or 2 months, and then where we are and where we want to be in a week. So that's kind of it's been fun and a challenge all kind of wrapped into one.
Being Quinn earlier, talked about catching up with personnel.
Sure. I think in general, when you're blessed enough to play longer into the season, or obviously coming into the situation that I did, you're always kind of feel like you're behind, which is not a bad thing. Kind of puts a sense of urgency on everything. So it is a lot of, hey, we got to get this done and we got to move on to this. So all aspects of whether it's, getting the staff together, which is the first priority, then into evaluating the players, and taking a look at free agency into the draft and putting a spring calendar together, trying to figure out, the offseason program, when you want to start that, how the rules work with the different phases that you have to get into. So it's kind of like a big puzzle you're trying to put together. So you feel very much behind on all that because, again, we're already to the end of February, beginning of March, and some teams have had that in place for a month or two. So you want to make sure you're doing everything you can to kind of get it going.
When you did your evaluation, what is the one thing that surprised you from watching this roster?
Surprised me? Probably, I can't say anything really surprised me because, again, I kind of look at it through new eyes, so just trying to be subjective from the standpoint of like, hey, what do these guys do well? What do we need to improve on? What are kind of some of the big picture things we need to work on? And just trying to write notes. I can't say that there's definitive answers on any of that right now because it'll be a process of the next couple months of, taking a look at that and really where the starting point we want to go from and build from there. Each year is a different year. Even if you're with the same team, it doesn't really matter. The seasons are completely different. The players change, sometimes the coaches change, and you have to really just kind of commit to that one single year to build on. And so I would say from that standpoint, we're going to, start from scratch and kind of build from there and go, as we move through the spring.
So the coach wanted to say you were starting from scratch.
I think for me, it's just, I'm going to start where I do every year, whether it's as the head coach or whether it was as a coordinator. You're going to start over, and that's what we do. And you kind of evaluate and work from there. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. just strictly talking about the team and what you see on film, I mean, these guys play extremely hard. You know, I think Bob and his staff has done a great job of getting guys out there that try to play smart, try to play aggressive. There's a lot of good fundamental things on film that you see, you know, from a standpoint that you can build on. And just overall, just a good group of hardworking guys, which is the best place to start, you know, and just kind of knowing that they're going to have to get in there and grind it out, and we're going to have to get ready to kind of start over from that standpoint. That's what you want to make sure you have from the get-go.
Yeah, Coach, Edwards has said often that when you become a head coach, you get 5 things on your desk every week that you never expect. You got 5, 3.
Sure. I mean, I really think the biggest thing for when you kind of step into that role, you have to remember is that whoever comes through that door and whatever problem or situation comes through the door, you have to remember that that's the most important situation to that person, and you need to address it that way. You need to make sure that you really are trying to do everything you can to help whatever that situation is.
When you were hired, you said obviously the relationship with Bob was going to be key, but now that you're 3 weeks into it, just how he has that then that you guys have that background. He called it the good old days.
Yeah, you know, it's been great. I mean, from that standpoint, I'm extremely lucky to be in the situation where, quite honestly, like, this is my first time walking this path. So to have someone that's kind of next to me saying, hey, look, be alert for this, or let's be ready to go on this, and kind of just pushing me along from that standpoint, because he's already been in the fire for the last couple of years with it, has been hugely helpful. So we kind of just fall right back into our normal routine, and it's like, you know, kind of, like you said, good old days, but like time just kind of hasn't really passed. You just fall right back into the pattern and say, okay, hey, let's look at this, or we're watching this, or we're evaluating this now, or let's talk about that. And, you know, Bob and I have a language, I'll call it, that's very similar from a standpoint of how we look and talk about football. And when you have that communication that flows smoothly like that, things tend to go a little bit more quicker.
And how much are you looking forward to April when you get the offseason? You just stand in front of the players.
Yeah. I mean, you can't wait. Yeah, you can't wait for that process, right? To be able to finally get up. Not that I don't mind enjoying standing in front of you guys all the time, which I've done a lot more in the last couple months than I probably have my entire career. But when you finally get in that room and you're allowed to talk to the players and the team and start to mold what you're looking for in your vision and get their vision back and try to put all that together, as a coach, you know, that's what you live for.
Versus individual sharing, how is it different than talking to them on the phone or eyeball?
Sure. I mean, I always love to have the one-on-one. I always love to have that communication face-to-face. So anytime we get a chance to meet guys in person, I always feel that's the best. I'm a little bit lost in translation with the rest of it. So.
Quinn and Matt. Trevor was at the podium and just had some really nice things to say about you. I know your relationship with Syracuse,
yeah.
The preseason, the AFC Championship game. What does that mean to you to know that he's over there praising you?
Yeah, I mean, it means the world to me. I mean, there's a lot of guys, and Doug is phenomenal. He's been a guy that I've been able to lean on kind of throughout my entire career. We always touch base, during the off season and bounce ideas or just, check in with each other. So it means a lot to me. There's, it's kind of been, nice to come here and see some friends and guys that have been through it before, and ask them how they're doing, or just have them checking in on you, because they know it's it's a whirlwind from that standpoint. So it means a lot. What's that? I'm Diet Cokes probably, but yeah.
Matt, when you're besides winning, what do you want this culture to embody? We know of the Patriot way. Dan Quinn talks about brotherhood.
Sure.
The Eagles talked about brotherhood this year. What do you want?
I think everything for me just kind of revolves about who I am. I'm all about the relationship, and I want to make sure that that's first and foremost with everything that we do. I want to make sure that I know who they are as people, and they know who I am as a man, and as a father, as a husband, and all that stuff too. And I think that's where we start. And from there, you start to build the respect process of, hey, this is my job, this is what I'm trying to do, and this is your job, and that's how we're trying to work together. And I think through that, then you build that team unity and that bond, and then you go from there. I think when you spend as much time together with a football team, players, coaches, whatever it is, you build that family atmosphere. I'm very much into the, family is critically important to me. And when I have, my players or my guys or my coaches, that's my family. They're an extended part of my family, and I treat them that way. And that's what's really important to me.
Matt, when you were in New England, when you were in New England, you worked alongside Brian Ferentz for several years. What do you think his potential is in this business, whether it's on the side or
Sure. I mean, just in general with Brian, I think he's phenomenal. He's a really smart guy, works extremely hard, studies the game, tries to understand the problems that, are involved in it. His overall organization is phenomenal. He was a young guy with us and very detail oriented from that standpoint. So, I mean, I just think that's, I think the world of him is from a coach, as a person, and I think the sky's limits for him. So,
when you pop in the tape, what are your thoughts on the defensive line? What does that group need to take the next step?
Sure. I mean, it's hard for me to say, like, from last year's tape, hey, this is what they're going to do to take the next step. I'm really trying to evaluate and say, hey, this is what they do well. These are the things that are going to fit kind of some of the things that we want to do from a fundamental standpoint. I think from a scheme standpoint, I'm going to look at some of it and say, hey, this is, good or not good, but I'm really trying to look at the techniques, the fundamentals, and then really also, you have to try to understand what they were being taught. You look at whether it's college tape or pro tape, or you want to understand what they were being taught so that you're not evaluating something that's incorrect. And you don't want to say, hey, this guy can't do this. Well, he wasn't asked to do something like that. So that's kind of where you're trying to get the common base ground to start.
Maybe with your scheme change in mind, what do you perceive as your needs?
The needs? I mean, the needs are going to continually change. So, I mean, and just in general for me, I'm just trying to make sure that we can play fundamentally sound. And some of these guys that maybe you're saying weren't as productive or didn't fit or whatever, they may turn out to be more productive, or they may turn out to be a better fit. So we're going to go through that process and kind of take a look at it. I think the needs question in general, just to kind of throw that out there because I know that's coming, is something that's always kind of changing. I think first you want to try to build the team and make sure that you have solid competition across the board and that everybody is in a position where they're pushing each other, Every year is new, like I said. So whatever was last year, and we're going to try to make sure that next year is as competitive as possible and put everybody in a situation to compete, to go play. So from a need standpoint, we want to make sure, obviously, you have enough competition in all the situations, and you want to have good competition, the best competition you can possibly get. So you're never going to really try to pass up an opportunity for a good player on your team, and whether that puts someone else that's maybe a good player on your team in a hard spot or a competitive situation, then that's probably good for you. So that's what we're going to do as we go through and look at the needs.
You guys want to be multiple on defense. How important is evaluating those guys that can do multiple things? Versatile guys play linebacker, but
sure.
also rush, play safety, come down the box and a dime. How time do you spend?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general in the game right now in the league with the rosters and where the sizes are, I would say everybody really needs to be multiple. If you're going to do one thing on a football team, it better be outstanding. So in general, it's easy to kind of say, all right, long snapper. He's probably outstanding at the long snapping, and that's the one thing he does really well, or kicking, or the quarterback position. I think the rest of it you look at and say, okay, hey, what can this guy do well, and how many different positions can we put him in to execute at a high level, whether it's offense or defensively. So you're always evaluating that on every player.
What's your impression so far of Jared Davis and kind of his potential in the defense?
Sure. I mean, Jared, going through last year's film, obviously was thrown into the fire pretty quick, had a lot of snaps out there as a young guy, which I've been through that before with a couple players, especially at the linebacker position in my history. That's an extremely difficult thing to do. When you're in the middle of the defense and you're trying to control and tie together both the front end and the back end, there's a lot of pressure in that situation. For him to go out, obviously, and do it at a high level like he did last year is a great sign. But we're just going to have to see what it looks like moving forward into the next year. There's always a little bit of a change, and obviously there's going to be a big change now with the coaching staff and the scheme and all the rest of it. So we'll see how that goes.
Matt, won't be the only time you're going against a former colleague. This could be seen Brian Davis coming in the offense and now the Rockers schedule. You guys are going to be matching wits pretty much directly offensively. Just your thoughts on that kind of a matchup, having worked with him.
Sure. Yep, and we've had that situation before. So Brian and I we've gone through that in previous years when he was at Cleveland. So Brian Dable is an outstanding coach. Very, very smart, extremely well prepared, does a great job of attacking from an offensive standpoint what you do defensively. Really will analyze your weak points and try to exploit those to the fullest. He's going to do a lot of things that kind of give you some cause to have to make quick in-game adjustments also. So it's really difficult. And again, being from kind of the same mind, same school standpoint, knowing each other so well as we do, it gets very difficult when that comes into effect. We also played against each other in college too, so we actually go way even a little bit further back than that. So,
hey Matt, a couple more for Matt. Bob talked about the value of being more balanced offensively. You come from a place where a lot of times the short passing game kind of was the running game based on matchups and everything else. So how do you look at the idea of balance, not just the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general that's a great word to throw out there, balance. Like, what does that really mean? I think you want to be balanced on offense and defense, probably special teams. Probably in general, you're probably going to be better off if you're balanced, right? But not necessarily. I think what you're going to do is you're going to do whatever it takes that week to win. We've been in situations before, whether it was New England or whatever, where we knew running the ball wasn't going to work, so we had to throw it 50 times to win. We knew that in other situations, we weren't going to be able to throw the ball 50 times. We had to run the ball 30-plus times to win. So whatever it's going to be that week to win is what we're going to need to do. I think in general what you'd like to do is go into a game with a mindset that you can be balanced, whether it's offensively or defensively, in a situation where you can do both. Because if you can do both, then you probably have control of the game. You're probably going to be in a pretty good situation to win. So that's a general good statement to have. Like, hey, if we're balanced, we're probably going to be in control. We're probably going to win. So that would be a great way to approach it, and that's what we will, and how we want to approach it. I think if you go into a game and you're traditionally or over a period of time, you're just one-sided, it's pretty easy for a defense to kind of figure out what you do, take that away, and force you to go in a different direction.
Last question. How is this process here different from you?
Yeah, I'm here a lot earlier. I get to talk to you guys a little bit, which is fun. But it's great. I really enjoy this process. I enjoy when you get into, whether it's free agency or the draft, getting to know the guys on an individual basis and see, what they're all about. Ask them questions, kind of pick their brain. And from this standpoint, it's great because I get to exposure to a lot more guys. And then what's fun, and now, started last night, you get some offensive guys getting in those meetings, and now, I'm firing defensive questions at them too, or it's going to be the same thing. We get the defensive guys, start asking them offensive questions just to see how they think. You want to see how they process and kind of put them in some uncomfortable situations. So it's just a lot more to be involved in, which is great. Okay? I appreciate it, everybody. It's good to see everybody. Good to see you guys from New England. All right? Thanks.
Thanks, Coach Matt.
Yep.